Do you want to become a more confident trader? Of course. Let's find out how to do that. Hey traders, this is Taylor with the Trader's Brain, and today we are talking about trading confidence. Now, why is confidence important? Well, one of the things that I've talked about is I've talked about how our feelings are fuel. What we feel, what emotions we have are fuel to the actions that we take. And so often in trading, we are acting based on fear, whether it's fear of missing out or fear of losing or fear of being wrong. And so what we really want to do is we want to replace fear with other emotions that are going to fuel actions that benefit us from a trading perspective. And one of the great emotions that we can feel is a feeling of confidence. Now, the question is how do you feel confident even when you're maybe not doing so good? Maybe you're on a losing streak. Maybe you've had a string of losers. So feeling confident can sometimes be a challenge for us. Now, one of my clients turned me on to this really great book. It's called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect by Dr. Bob Rotella. Now, Dr. Rotella is a mindset coach for golfers, and he's worked with athletes for many decades on mindset and how athletes can perform better. Naturally, the things that Bob talks about in his book are highly relevant for traders because we're in a high performance environment as well. And there's a story in that book that really resonated with me, and it's something that I've adopted in my own trading. And I want to share that story with you. In fact, I'm going to read it. It's about Stuart Anderson, who's a former professional football player with the Washington Redskins. And he's talking about an experience he had in high school playing basketball. So let's read Stuart's story and then talk about it. Stuart took a seminar I gave on confidence in athletics. I asked him to share with the class what went through his mind when he was thinking confidently. Stuart replied with a story from his high school basketball career. I was a 50% shooter from the floor, he said. In the first round of the state playoffs during my senior year, I took my first shot and missed. Stuart kept missing. He had the worst shooting night of his life in that game. He missed 20-odd shots in a row. His team teetered on the edge of elimination. One of the other students in the seminar asked, Stuart, why didn't you start passing the ball after you missed, say, 10 in a row? Because I'm a shooter. But let me finish the story, Stuart said. His team scrapped and stayed in the game. With a minute to go, trailing by a point, they stole the ball and called a timeout. The coach, reasoning that Stuart was irremediably cold that night, diagrammed a play to run 55 seconds off the clock and set up a shot for another player, a junior. Wait a minute, coach, Stuart objected. I want the shot. Give me the ball. The underclassman, it turned out, didn't really want the shot at that stage, so the coach, against his better judgment, changed his plan and called a play to give Stuart the shot. He got the ball beside the free throw line, one of his favorite spots. He turned and jumped, absolutely confident. His eyes zeroed in on the rim. He let the shot go. And in it went. Stuart was the hero. Fans carried him off the floor. The next day, the newspapers headlined his game-winning shot. After hearing his story, one of my students raised a hand and asked, how did you stay confident after you missed all those shots? Well, you have to understand, I've always been a 50% shooter, Stuart replied. After I missed one, I figured the next one was likely to go in. After I missed two, I was overdue. By the time I'd missed 5, I figured the next one absolutely had to drop. Every time I missed, I figured the odds were increasing in my favor. Okay, the Stuart said, if that's how you think when you missed your first shots, what do you think if you make your first 6 or 7 in a row? That's totally different, Stuart said. You decide that tonight's your night, you're on a hot streak, and you're going to make everything you look at. That's ridiculous, the student said. You can't have it both ways. Of course you can, Stuart said. Stuart had revealed something very basic about the way good athletes think. They create their own realities. They think however they have to think to maintain their confidence and get the job done. That is a great story. I love that story because of what it can teach us as traders about generating confidence. What did Stuart do? What were the things that he did to actually do that, to actually produce that confidence? Well, there are two really big principles here. The first one is that Stuart knew his statistics. He knew what his edge was. He knew that he was a 50% shooter. He knew that if he took 30 shots in a game, 15 were going to drop. He knew that because he looked at his statistics over and over and over again, and he believed in them. So he understood his edge. As traders, do you know your edge? Do you know what your win percentage is? Do you actually have a methodology that's consistent that if you follow it, it's going to produce a statistical advantage? Or are you simply trading based on feel? When you're trading based on feel and you don't know or understand your statistics behind your trading success or failure, it's much harder to find something to lean on. And that's what Stuart was doing. He was leaning on his statistics to help create confidence. The second thing that he did, which was really important, was he had the right mindset. He chose to think thoughts that created confidence. This is a hugely important principle in mindset. Now, you've heard me say this before, but I want to say it again. Circumstances do not create our emotions. Circumstances are merely the facts, the neutral facts that occur in our lives. They're just things that happen. What we think about those circumstances is what creates and produces our feelings. And so we get to choose whatever we want to think. That's the other important principle. Nobody is forcing you to have a thought about a loss, to think about your losing streak in one way or another way. You get to choose that. Stuart, as you can see, chose to think about a losing streak in a way that created confidence. He leaned on his metrics and he thought, oh, I have a loser. Well, the odds are my next one is going to be a winner. We can do the same thing. We can look at our metrics and we can lean on those and couple them with really good mindset and choosing thoughts that create confidence versus fear. Now, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 losing trades in a row, it's very easy to begin thinking the thoughts, oh, I'm on a losing streak. I'm never going to win. This market is terrible, right? We have all these thoughts that go through that reinforce fear around our trading. And so what happens when we get another signal that comes? Well, we're probably going to be hesitant, right? Or if it takes off without us, I missed it. I better get in. We have FOMO, right? And so trading based on fear is never going to work out for us. Trading based on confidence, though, being confident in our approach, being confident in our process, being confident in our edge, can make all the difference for us. This was a really great story that illustrates really well how you combine the benefits of having an edge with a proper mindset to create confidence in every trade that you take, even if you're in the midst of a losing streak. So you get to decide whether you're going to trade with confidence or trade with fear. That's it for today. Until next time, happy trading.